Hello everyone, I'm Babler Jonathan and this is The Inside on Equinoxe Television. In this edition of the program, we're going to be talking about what many critics have qualified as outright violation of human rights in Cameroon. A case in point in this edition of the program is that of Justice AYAH AYAH ABINE, senior magistrate at the Supreme Court of Cameroon, who is now on retirement. He was arrested on the 21st of January 2017 and jailed for over 200 days without any charges. We're going to be taking a look at all of that and of course the deplorable situation of thousands of Cameroonian refugees who are now in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They fled their homes in some villages in the northwest and southwest regions as a result of the worsening situation, notably concerning the Anglophone crisis, and are now seeking refuge in President Buhari's country. Stay with us. Told you in this edition of the program we'll be taking a look at what critics have qualified as outright violation of human rights in Cameroon, and a glaring case is that of Justice AYAH AYAH ABINE, senior Supreme Court magistrate now on retirement, who was arrested and detained for hundreds of days without the charges being read out to him. And now our guest in this edition of the program is AYAH AYAH ABINE. He is the spokesperson of the AYAH family. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Thanks for having me.
How is that?
It's better to say God is keeping him, because I am very surprised. The family is very surprised he has not broken down up till now. When he left detention, he left as a half-dead man with a very delicate heart condition, and he had lost his sight on the left eye. The doctors told us surgery was imminent and surgery had to be urgently carried out, but we've not yet put together the money that was required for him to go abroad for the surgery. So I should just say God is keeping him, because by the grace of God, contrary to the medical reports, that he has not broken down by now. We thank God for his life.
Now, how far have you gone with the quest for justice concerning his case?
Yeah, we seized some international courts. We seized the courts as a family, and we seized the courts as a party. Though I'm not a member of the party, I'm talking of the party. Yeah. So we seized the Court of Arbitration at the UN, or the Court on Arbitrary Arrests. We're yet to get a definitive answer from them. We know the letter is already at their decks. You know, those things take time. Those are international things. They receive cases like that from all over the world, so it takes time. Then the party sees the African Court on People's and Human Rights too, and Human and People's Rights, that's how they call it. So we are expecting those people to grant us justice, because justice has been denied to us in our own country, which is a disgrace for Cameroon.
Now, when you say justice has been denied, the AYAH family, and particularly Justice AYAH AYAH ABINE, who is your father, what exactly do you mean?
Well, by law, you cannot arrest somebody, you cannot detain somebody on a Saturday, on a public holiday. That's the law. Unless you pick up that person flagrant delicto, that's somebody just committing an offense that requires imprisonment or detention on a Saturday, a public holiday, Saturday weekend. So AYAH Paul was kidnapped. It's not even an arrest, because there was no warrant of arrest. He was kidnapped by forces of law and order, and shamefully, these forces of law and order, they dragged him. There was a certain point he even almost fell down. I was there, he was in front of me. Dragged him out of his home. He was even bare-bodied. Bare-bodied, you can't imagine that. Yeah. It took my intervention, because I got so angry at a certain point. I told that guy that this cannot continue. You can't do that. At least permit him put on clothes. So he was picked up on a Saturday and detained on a Saturday. 1. 2. By law.
Is Saturday in violation of the law?
Yeah, in violation of the law, of course. All those articles there of the Criminal Procedure Code, you have there are a lot of articles that have been violated. Worse off is the fact that he is a judge, and the Criminal Procedure Code protects judges from being picked up like that. If a judge is, if there is, let me even use the word Congo ça, because the French put it very well. See, let's susceptible. If there is just Congo ça in the quartier that he may have committed the crime, the president of the Supreme Court appoints a judge to investigate, not to pick him up, to investigate, to hear the affair. Is it possible that this man, this judge, may have committed an affair? And if at all, committed the crime. And if at all he has committed a crime that warrants hearing, there has to be a panel of judges appointed who are at the least of his grade and above. That was not done. It just came and picked up the guy, pulled him on the ground, and went and dumped him in the cell, a cell that I believe was programmed to kill him. In that cell there was no aeration, no holes. That's even pigs, our pigs, you know, people have called us cats, rats and dogs.
Yeah.
Even rats and dogs and pigs have houses like our dogs that have aeration. They're entitled to medical care whenever it warrants. They're entitled to food. They're entitled to their visitors. Mr. AYAH symbolizes, he epitomizes the Anglophone problem, because if a judge protected by everything that the law protects him could be treated like that. I don't want to talk of the lawyers and the teachers that are picked up. I'm talking of a judge who is protected by the law. If he can be treated like that,
a senior magistrate of the Supreme Court, the highest court in the country.
He was the highest ranked in the highest court of the land.
And it should be noted that at the time he was picked up, he was still on duty.
Of course, he was a sitting judge. He had his office, he had his car. I gave back the car after he was forcefully dumped on retirement. I gave back. He had all those things. He had all those attributes. It was only on, I think it was July 2017 that the decree came out sending him on retirement. So before that, he was a judge, sitting judge. That is an abomination to the judiciary, if at all we have a judiciary. And the most shameful thing about all this nonsense is the fact that the judges condoned, the judges were, forgive me for saying it, they were accomplices to it. The judges were quiet. Contrary to the lawyers, I really appreciated the lawyers. Contrary to the lawyers who stood up as a unit to say no, the judges just laughed at it. There were some who even told us, the family, they are watching, that your dad was making a lot of noise, so now we hope you'll not make noise anymore. Coming from judges. It was a shame to Cameroon, a big shame.
Now, when you look at all what you're describing now, where is the problem? Where could the problem be coming from? The judicial system, the interference of the executive arm of the state in the judiciary?
Mm-hmm. The problems can be described in two ways. As I said earlier, the problem first is the fact that Mr. AYAH is an Anglophone. That's the problem. There is no gainsaying. He is an Anglophone. That could not have happened to a Francophone judge. That could not have happened. We've seen cases of Francophone judges that have been involved in some nasty affairs, such as the disappearance of babies, corruption and all that. And it's just business as usual. That's the first problem. It is because he is an Anglophone judge. That's why that happened to him. That's the first, because I don't see any other explanation. First, he was picked up at the heart of the Anglophone crisis. And even when he was released, we don't even know what he did, because he was never tried before any court. Who were the people even seizing the courts, saying, but why did you pick up this man? Nobody ever told why they picked him up. So they just came and dragged that old man out of his home, went and dumped him somewhere. And some good day, when the good Lord just touched their hearts, they just said, okay, get out and go back home. Till date, we don't know the crime he committed. That's the first thing. Secondly, I don't believe we have a judiciary. A judiciary is just, maybe we'll call it the executive judiciary. They say we have three arms of government on paper, but I believe we have just an arm of government. The executive judiciary, the executive legislative, and the executive legislative. Getting into Parliament, nobody passes a private member's bill in Parliament. Everything in Parliament comes from the executive. The bills come in, and there are times you don't change even, you don't cut even a T, and you don't dot even an I. So we have just the executive, and the executive. Get even to the Opération EPV, as you call it. Everything comes from the Minister of Justice, if we need justice, if we need to recover those funds and prevent embezzlers from embezzling public funds, we don't need all those executive people doing. We just need to empower the police. We let them do their job and do their job well. We don't need the DCS and all that. We need just the normal courts. The courts will do the job, if at all we have the courts in the country.
Now you're talking there about the highly centralized system of government in Cameroon, because officially we know that Cameroon is functioning under the presidential system of government, but in reality some critics have said the country is instead functioning under a presidentialist system of government where everything comes from the top.
Yeah, they are very right. I'll give you a small example. I am the AYAH Foundation, president of the foundation. We went to Bamenda to offer food to detainees in Bamenda, to offer food and relief-saving materials to people who need those materials. We're not going there to do some politics. The foundation doesn't even do politics. Nothing with politics, not politically affiliated. They tell us in Bamenda to go to Yaoundé to get permission to come and give food to people who are in Bamenda. It's like telling people before you have to maybe even breathe oxygen, maybe we'll get to that point, you have to go and get a pass from Yaoundé before you come and get your own portion of oxygen in your region. I believe if we had implemented the decentralization that has not been implemented for 21 years now, if we had done that, we wouldn't have gotten to this position of the senseless war we are fighting against our own citizens. See, what does this centralization do? And that is the problem with decentralization. Centralization appoints appointees who lord over elected representatives. I put it this way. We have elected President Paul Biya, those who voted for him and not, for example, I didn't vote for him. We have elected President Paul Biya, President of the Republic. Once he's president for all Cameroonians, including you and me and people we didn't vote for him. But France gets up, or the UN, and says, well, though you have voted for President Paul Biya as President of your Republic, we appoint maybe President Macron to be President of Cameroon. That's what the decentralization we have on paper does. So even decentralization, if such T's and I's are not cut and dotted or wiped off that document, it would not solve the current problem.
Is that not the root cause of what critics have called today outright violation of human rights in Cameroon today, not only within the context of the Anglophone crisis, but in other areas too? Talking about the fight against Boko Haram, there are many people who have been allegedly victimized because of this.
It has hugely contributed to the fact that nothing is working in this country. Nothing at all. Nothing is working. We are going down and down and down the drain.
Now, coming back to the case of your father, Justice AYAH Abine, the case filed once at a certain time disappeared between the appeal court of the Central Region and the Supreme Court.
It's a shameful thing. That's why I'm even laughing. Yeah, the appeal court and the Supreme Court are separated just by a wall. So you just need to walk through the appeal court and get into the Supreme Court. At a certain stage of, we appealed. We seized the courts. They call that habeas corpus for illegal arrest and detention of a victim. Any Cameroonian who is illegally arrested and detained can seize the courts for illegal arrest and illegal detention. And by law, such a person has to immediately release. So we seized the court of first instance that has jurisdiction for those cases. They just threw the thing out. They called us there someday and said, what did they even say? That we're not charged. That is not charged. They said he's been suspected for terrorist activities, so he cannot release him. Look, that provision of the law does not say that if somebody is suspected, just suspicion for whatever, it does not apply. No, it applies. If you are illegally arrested and detained, you are released immediately. Full stop. Why you are suspected, okay, it has nothing to do. So the man threw out the thing. We went to the Court of Appeal, the same. They just looked for, I At times there's no hearing even, just a few seconds, and they throw out the thing, and they come behind and say, well, please, there is nothing we can do. You know that this thing is a very sensitive case. We're waiting for orders from above. Then it was sent to the Supreme Court. By law, the Supreme Court has to hear the case within a period of time. It took beyond double that amount of time. And at the level of the Supreme Court, we went there, going downstairs, coming upstairs, going and coming up. And they cannot find the file. Where is the file? They cannot find the file. The Supreme Court tells us to go down to the appeal court. The appeal court tells us to come back up to the Supreme Court. And we did that and did that and did that. And we just said, well, everything for God. That is what is happening in a country that has a judiciary. It's a shame. I belong to the group of people who believe that we don't even need that judiciary. Just leave the executive do what he wants to do with the country.
And now you took the case to the international level, and you're expecting justice from outside?
Yeah, we're expecting justice now. It's a shameful thing. We're expecting international interference into something that could have just, it required just a serious judge to say this is a shame to our country, let's stop this. There is a wonderful judge, even at the level of the presidency. There are insiders who are saying this thing is madness. A judge called Name, he works for the presidency. How can you arrest, kidnap a judge? He spoke for some time, and the French press and some French-speaking citizens crucified him that he's supporting secessionists. Remember, this man is presumed innocent until judgment is passed, according to the Constitution. So he's not even been charged, not even to talk of heard, but he's already called a secessionist. There is the advisor to the presidency, Mr. Penda Ikoka. He too came up and said, but this is disgraceful. You kidnap a judge, not even an arrest, because till date we're still waiting for a warrant of arrest. You kidnap an advocate general of the Supreme Court. He is a symbol of the law. There are many symbols of the law, but those people are symbols of the law. So if you pick up this man, what is the message you are sending to the common man? That nobody is protected by the law in this country. They can do that to him. Then you and I were just anybody can do anything. And it's what is happening down the southwest and the northwest region now. There is no law. You get the forces of law and order burning down the villages, shooting people with intent to kill. The law, for example, regard to maintaining peace and order, it doesn't require a firearm. It doesn't require a firearm. If it gets to the extent that there is serious threat by unarmed people, I can call it that way, you can use rubber bullets. But our military men are shooting with live bullets that with intent to kill. My foundation has a lot of those cases. There are a lot of those victims who've been taken care of. For example, young Ellen, she was shot in the eye. Sitting in her home on her bed with her family, enjoying the peace of the day. The military shoot her in the eye. She lost the eye. The face is badly damaged. Thanks be to God, the foundation was able to do what it could do to put together the funds that are required to fly her abroad for surgery. There are thousands of kids. We have Menyong George. He's currently at Bingo, Mutengene, shot on the leg. The leg was completely shattered. The bone completely broken. The leg is rotting off. We have Willibrod. He could be watching. We have Belwin Imankong, shot on the back. The bullet went through the spine. He's paralyzed. I don't want to mention those who have been killed. That is the consequence of a judiciary that is not working. That's a consequence of a country where the executive is above the constitution of the country. Above the constitution of the country. That is terrible.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. Time for us to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week. Coming up, the press review with Smart Jigangibre.
The Anglophone crisis, the senatorial elections, and Operation Sparrowhawk were the most read stories on newspapers this week, beginning with the senatorial elections which took place on March 25th. The Guardian Post reported that security forces escorted councillors to vote in the northwest and southwest regions respectively, adding that helicopter ferried Lebialem councillors to vote in Chang. In Fako ghost councillors vote in place of Boya mayor, while SDF accused CPDM for planting video camera at the polling station in Bengui. The Median newspaper was rather cold in the story, saying that amid Ambazonian threat, senatorial elections proceeded in calm and serenity in the southwest and northwest regions. On the same story, the Sun newspaper revealed that the race to the Senate was an election of ballots and bullets as guns rent the air in Kupe Maninguba, Lebialem before and during voting, with Professor Kale as head of list for the SDF, confirming that there was no voting in Bangem. The Post, reporting on the senatorial elections, tells us that Atanganje and Elekam Director General give conflicting reports, and Eden says fear, tension and surprises damping senatorial elections with gun battles in Bangem, Tombel. They also announced the battle between Ekema Patrick, mayor of Boya, and Senator Mbela Mukichas, whose war of words rages on. The Info newspaper also talked about the senatorial elections that CPDM councillors voted for SDF in Fako, while commercial bike riders and taxi drivers were simply arrested, and the Horizon announced that SDF is heading for victory in the Northwest region thanks to Lawan Bako's UDP and Bello Buba's UNDP that helped sink CPDM. The Voice reported that Ambazonian dogs of war ungovern Lebialem with the Red Dragons, signaling future South Sudan risk. The Guardian Post, in one of its issues, reported that Agbobala denies being sponsored by Atanganje to frustrate Anglophone struggle. In the midst of the crisis, the Guardian Post asked who should Biya be grateful to, the Anglophones or the Nordies. Finally, for the median, Francophones, precisely those from the Beti clan, excelled in concourse into Kondengi prison as the Special Criminal Court conducted exams stating names like that of Bekolo Ebe, Jodone Oyuno, Max Ohanja and Atanganakuna, all successful. The Sun announced that it was total panic as Operation Sparrow Hawk closed ex-government officials. The Voice says high-profile thieves parade Kondengi, and the Guardian Post tells us that Kondengi prison receives 4 new high-profile tenants. This is coming at a time when 7 top regime barons of calm water were cited as Atanganakuna's alleged accomplices, and the Info simply puts it, Atanganakuna are Kondengi.
That was the press review compiled by Smart Njikan Gabriel. Now, we're going to take a look at the deplorable situation of refugees, thousands of them, who are in neighboring Nigeria, languishing in pains, suffering. And our guest was in Nigeria. He saw, he felt their pains. AYAH AYAH ABINE, what did you see in Nigeria?
I saw the worst of sins that I don't think those sins, from what we learned from history, match the sins that occurred during the Second World War. There are about 50,000 plus Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria. I don't want to call them Anglophone refugees, they are Cameroonian refugees. I don't call them Ambazonian, they are Cameroonian refugees. They have plus 50,000 Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria. The UN talks of 20,000 plus registered children and women. But I can authoritatively say they are plus 50,000 across 4 main states: Cross River State, Benue State, Taraba State, and Akwa Ibom State. Plus 50,000. There are stretches in Lagos and Abuja, people who are just fed up of the whole thing and they just believe they just have to integrate themselves in Nigeria. So there are some patches across Abuja, Lagos. I even received a call from Enugu that there are some people there who were they're in very bad shape, shot by the military. So we are people there sleeping on the floor, Our girls are prostituting. I met some in Benue State. There are two particularly. I got your telephone numbers. I have to go back there and look for them and give them something to at least help them get a better life out of themselves. Our kids have water. Even water is a luxury, but they have water for lunch. They get water from the river courses. The camp in Ecom, for example, we use the word camp. It's not really a camp. They're just buildings that the Nigerian government has given to our people, uncompleted buildings. The Nigerian government has been very kind. So in a small patch of maybe 2 meters or 3 meters square, you have kids, you have children. There's a difference between kids and children. You have the aged, you have parents and grandparents living together. So you have the really terrible education that the young and the very young are getting, sharing those spaces with experiences that are beyond your ages by the grown-ups, for example, smoking cigarettes, and it is terrible. One of the scenes that really touched me when I was there was that of a young guy, a young boy, kid, 2 years of age, 2.5, eating with his brother, and at a certain point, he seizes the plate of food. When I say food, it's just some badly cooked rice. Food is an overstatement. He seizes the plate of fried rice, and his brother is running towards him, and he warns his brother and tells him, he saw those images, that no, his is enough. So it's about survival of the fetus. There is no food. Food is a luxury. So whenever somebody comes, an angel from heaven, you can see a grandparent and a daughter-in-law fighting for a sachet of oil, just about 150 francs CFA. You can see a grandmom cursing her granddaughter for refusing to share a cup of rice with her. That's how our people are living there, and they are dying by the day.
And they are now depending on men of goodwill, humanitarian organizations like the AYAH Foundation, as well as the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and the Nigerian government to survive. And their own government has said nothing, not even a word.
I thank you for that. You helped me to get somewhere. You see, the refugee crisis in Nigeria epitomizes the Anglophone problem, the Anglophone question. Let me illustrate. In the 80s, we came up as a nation. There was some national solidarity that had never been seen before to support victims of the same disaster just here in neighboring Yaoundé. People lost their lives in thousands. The nation stood as a person, and we supported those victims. We are still supporting them till date. In the 90s, I contributed 50 francs in the 90s. I was quite young. My dad put us together and said, the Lions are in America playing football and they need money. We were the first supporters of the Lions in our quarter in GRA. My mom gave 8,900. My memory does not fail me. I gave 50 francs, I'm the youngest. And my dad gave a lion share. The nation came together to support the Lions. In the early 2000s, Boko Haram came up with this nonsense. We, as a nation, came together and funded the troops in cash and kind. The same troops that are killing, shooting to kill citizens in both Anglophone regions, burning down villages. We came together as a nation. We supported the troops, our troops. About 4 years ago, a circus struck. We lost thousands of Cameroonian souls, hundreds of Cameroonian souls. We came together again as a nation. We supported the victims, as we still do. I was among the people who went there on the field and condoned to the people. I have a colleague, you should be watching in the office, was among the victims. We came together as a nation. Now, why is the nation not coming together as a unit to support Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria? It is one of a number of things. Either they are all cats and rats and dogs, as they have been called. They don't need that kind of attention. Or they are all considered terrorists. Or they are saying they are lesser of Cameroonians than the English-speaking section of Cameroonians. It's one of all those possibilities. And the most when I met the second in command at Cross River State on Wednesday, the foundation went there, he asked me if I was a representative of the government. I said no. He asked me to present myself. I say, this is the AYAH Foundation. I'm the president. He came to visit the refugees. He took my card. He asked for my ID card. He took his scan. He made some calls to Cameroon. And he said, okay, just wanted to be sure. And he asked me, is your government aware of what is happening here? I said, yes. Why has your government not sent just maybe a DO? You people have DOs there. You people have divisional office. Yes, yes, divisional office. Why has the government not sent just the DO nearby here, Manu, to come and visit their people here? I said, maybe we have it, they have it in the making. So if the government does not make a statement about its citizens, it's not about angle of its citizens that are dying in neighboring Nigeria. The president end of year speech, I met staunch TPD and people who asked me, did the president really not mention the fact that we are here? I said, you heard the speech as I did. Staunch CPDM. My cousins used to have a fight with them in Manu.
They were disappointed.
Extremely disappointed.
They had to cover a long distance just to go and watch the president's speech.
Yes.
And at the end of the day,
exactly,
they were not satisfied.
They told me that they went for the speech. They were expecting their national president to just say something. He talked about refugees, Central Africa, in the East, and he didn't mention his citizens that are finding refuge. It is terrible. So, as I was saying, it just epitomizes the Anglophone problem. It's giving the impression that the radicals are right. Because the radicals, this is the message they're using to pass through their message, and they are successfully doing that. That, look, your dad, they tell me that, your dad, among the moderates, Mr. Balan Fontaine, Mr. Weber, even the Cardinal, they talk about dialogue. What happened to those who talked about dialogue? They picked them up and locked them, and they were tortured. Yeah, they were tortured. Torture can be psychological or physical. They were tortured for 8 months and they were released. Can't you see that those people don't consider us as they ought to just leave us settle this issue once and for all? And that is what is happening in the south and the northwest regions now. The moderates have no voice. Nobody's listening to them.
The extremists have taken over.
The extremists have taken over, and they are doing it. If something very divine doesn't occur in the coming months, I fear for what the situation there would be. I fear. The moderates, they have no place. That's why Mr. Bala, for example, can call for schools to resume for calm, and he's warned. He's told to sit down or they'll deal with him. That's why Mr. Fundi can call for calm and his house is burnt. That's why not even the Cardinal can contain the situation again. The radicals have taken over, and they are doing it with some kind of magic that is unimaginable. They've seized the show.
And concerning government's concern or interest on the Anglophone refugees in Nigeria, the only statement we've been hearing from some members of government is, come back home.
Come back home. I have been to Kwakwa. I have been to Didi village. I have been there. Villages burnt down. So they burnt to the soil. I listened to Cardinal Tomi say over your wonderful station that he was, just before his Kaikilaki, he went there himself and saw a village completely burned down. I heard him say so. I've listened to the Bishop of Manfe say he went to Kembon and Didi village and he saw exactly what I saw. So you would be very surprised to hear that before the foundation went down to Nigeria, Mr. Ayapor and wife told me to get some desperate kids from Nigeria, very desperate kids who've lost everything, and bring them back to come and stay in the orphanage. We have an orphanage until some other time that they will be ready to fend for themselves. Also to bring back 10 kids. All the kids as young as 5, 4 said they are not coming back. Why are you not coming back? My house has been burned. My dad has been killed. I don't just want to think about coming back to Cameroon again. We met the girls, and even the girls are telling us their love affair with the country, they are putting question marks to that. They are not sure they will ever return anytime soon. That is a dangerous thing. It's like what you see on TV involving the terrorists. when you see a kid of 4 or 5 beheading, it's already taught that he has to behead an American. Then you understand that we've got to a point of no return. And before getting to government, I would even talk about our elites. Let's just imagine that the government does not care because they don't care. What are elites doing? Manu, for example, has the richest of elites. They are the people who have benefited the most from the government. Neither any of them has made a statement. I talked with one, a highly ranked guy, and he told me he doesn't want problem with the government. You know, this thing, government has not said anything. I said, what stops you from sending your daughter to send to my mobile money account 500 francs or 5,000 francs to get water for a kid to whom water is a luxury in another man's land? Before getting to the government, I start with our elites. They have failed. I think they are the biggest disaster to the Anglophone suffering. They are suffering Anglophone community.
You just returned from the Federal Republic of Nigeria to see the refugees and to bring some assistance to them. And in your team was our reporter, Derek Jato. And now in the report coming up next, the special story, Derek Jato paints the picture of the refugees in Nigeria.
Amana in Obalingu local government area, Cross River State of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thousands of Southern Cameroonian refugees are spread all over this area. And when we met them, these Southern Cameroonian refugees told us that the only thing that is available and in abundance here in Amana is hunger.
Life is very, very strong for we, the refugees. They complain all the time, especially starvation. Food, we don't have food yet since October. So there have been a lot of problems of sleeping, food items, and cooking utensils.
This farming population left everything behind them in Cameroon, and each day they pray and wait for someone to come to their rescue in a foreign land. In one of their assembly grounds, a child is safe with water for lunch. Elsewhere, a kid denied his own twin brother food given for both of them by their mother. Today the AYAH Foundation just came in with foodstuff and other relief materials from Cameroon. With no telephone network here in Amana, the Amana village town crier managed to assemble only this few number. The majority of the refugees are far off and could not be reached. Not everyone here will go home with even a cup of rice. The tons of foodstuff brought by the foundation will not be sufficient to go round.
Mama, come over there. One man, one way, handicap.
The people once known in Africa as living in plenty are seen today scrambling for a meal. And everyone is involved. The children join their parents in the struggle, at least to secure a cup of rice, a cube of sugar, a cube of savon or Maggi for the family, even if it will last only for a day.
We have been suffering, people have been dying, even children have been dying.
Sick the worry with plenty. As we there so. Like myself, when all they see so, I don't know how I go. Look how they hold me for hand for the camera. All these problems, at times we go for doctor for medicine, don't finish. This.
The United Nations and the Nigerian government have both contributed their own quota.
Even the National Commission for Refugees came in full swing with a lot of relief material. Along with this were drugs sent in by the federal government.
But the health services are far from being adequate for the 17,000 registered Anglophone refugees in Cross River State, Nigeria. AYAH Foundation, a Cameroon-based humanitarian organization, descended to Nigeria.
We thought what we were hearing on social media, on the other media stations like yours, was a joke. So we saw a lot of people. We did what we could do for them. This is just like a pilot project. So when we go back to Cameroon, we know how to prepare better and come to take care of this people better. They are very sick people.
At Danari Health Center.
These people, okay, they've been completely treated.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Some are sutured, they've got an injury, some 12 stitches treated.
Okay.
Tima has not received that.
The foundation paid the accumulated bills of refugees that were treated here to enable the center buy more drugs, as many sick refugees keep on crossing the border on daily basis. This Anglophone crisis that is blamed for sending the Anglophone Cameroonians out of their country is also responsible for the psychological torture these sick refugees are going through. For instance, the great-granddaughter of this 93-year-old mother say it is the greatest wish of her great-grandmother to go back at the moment she is having, therefore, her health, her age, and the Anglophone crisis to battle with.
Thanks a bunch, Derek Jato, for that special story on the situation of thousands of Cameroonians seeking refuge in Nigeria as a result of the worsening situation as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Now, AYAH AYAH ABINE, what should government do at this point in time? What is government expected to do?
Mr. Babili, I'm happy you're married. I can see a ring on your finger. I imagine your wife is watching too. If you have a problem with your wife at home, you're married to her, she tells you she's not into this marriage again, because maybe she has seen Mr. Forhansen Chanji, who is, according to her, is a more appealing man. What do you do to your wife? You beat her, kill her children, you hang her. Is that what you do to your wife?
No, of course.
Okay,
No,
good.
of course.
So we cannot go on repeating failed and failed and failed and inhumane strategies over and over under the excuse of wanting to solve the Anglophone problem. I use the word excuse because I believe very strongly there are some people who don't want the problem solved. I'll give you a small example. Years ago, the government tried to set an injunction on the circulation of motorbikes in Douala. They tried and it didn't work. The head of state had to come up and say, no, stop that nonsense. He was a very wise man. I still believe he is, until the contrary is proven. Recently, in some localities in the northwest region, they have said, no motorbikes circulate until further notice. Why was it stopped in Douala and in the northwest region and southwest region it is not stopped by the authorities? That injunction is not stopped, it's not quashed. It's something for, you understand why. Secondly, let's just imagine that there are serious security reasons that permits the authorities to get to that kind of decision. By law, you have to set an alternative, just like the law regard to expropriation of land. What is the alternative you are giving to the people you are preventing from exercising that profession? That profession, as you and I know, you agree with me, feeds thousands of mouths of families in the north and southwest region. If you're stopping those people from exercising that duty, that profession for some time, which is possible, what is the alternative? No alternative. So what are you doing? You have radicalized thousands of families, one, who would only try to find a way, possibly, to revenge. And two, You have laid off a lot of motorbike riders who are not only very angry, but they'll be nursing the possibility of embracing the radicalist doctrine, which is, you see, I've told you those people don't want to solve this thing. Just join us, and that is what is happening. People are joining the radicals by the day. And with that kind of decision, people would just possibly seize the opportunity of embracing the radicalist doctrine. They have no alternative. What stops the government from saying, okay, you these bike riders come. Since you cannot exercise this profession for now and you have families to feed, let me just give you, just symbolic, just hold this 100,000 francs each. Start some kind of restaurant, some petty trade, until such a time when there will be no more security concerns that will permit you people to come back and exercise this noble profession. So this just goes in line with what is happening in patches of the south and northwest region. Bikes are burned down. So we get an idea, we get a possible idea that there are some people that just want the Anglophone crisis to explode, without which we will not be repeating wrong and wrong and wrong decisions. Coming back to your question, you will call your wife, put her down, and you tell her, I understand that possibly it's an example. Possibly I'm not good in bed, but I know you're very good in bed. Possibly I don't have that's the woman complaint. Possibly I don't have the finances you require to be able to take care of yourself, our children, and your parents as we ought to, because I have a modest salary. I know your salary is very modest. The major does not pay much, and the government is not helping you because the subventions are very ridiculous. Possibly I don't have what it takes to send you to school now because you want further education. Just give me time. For now, this is what I'll do to be able to get money, to be able to fend for your needs. I'll do this and do this for now. This is what I can do for now. In the long term, I'll do this and this and this, until such a time that the government will be humble enough, if at all they want to solve the crisis. And I believe they want to, because war is profiting nobody. We're losing souls. Those military men that are falling are parents of some families, and the civilians that are killed, we need them all to build a strong tomorrow. These are the long-term rules. These long-term decisions, we cannot take them now. We'll do them together. It will take time. Nothing is stopping the government from doing that. If the constitution can be modified time and time again to benefit just a few people or an individual, the constitution can be modified time and time again for the good of for the common good. It's about Cameroon here. It's not about some few people. Those people will pass. None of them is older than, I beg your pardon, than Cameroon. Cameroon would stay. What is stopping the government from dialoguing? Everybody is talking about an inclusive dialogue. Inclusive, as the word implies, involving everybody. Nobody is out of that dialogue. Everybody is involved. What is stopping them from talking to Cameroonians?
And the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paula Tanganji, who has been going around some parts of the northwest and the southwest regions of the country, told the people of AYAH that the government is ready to dialogue only with those who are seeking the unity of the state, already put in a condition.
Well, we've been hearing that the government is ready to dialogue for 2 years plus. I don't know when I don't know when that dialogue would take place. I've even heard some highly ranked persons say dialogue has already taken place and there's no more dialogue. So I don't know which versions of the story to take.
Now,
let me present the picture on the ground. These are truths. You know that people don't want truth. This is the picture on the ground. The moderates have lost it all. No moderate is in control of the situation on the ground. No moderate. Unless you want to tell me that the violence we're seeing youth with arms, youth killing the forces of law and order. Unless you want to tell me that the moderates are funding the war. There is nowhere possible you can prove that. The AYAH Pauls, the Ballards, the Fontaines, the Weavers, the Cardinals, none of them is for violence, including me. They have lost it all. They have lost it completely. How do you talk with people who have lost it completely? Only them. In some way, you would have to involve the radicals to be able to tell them, please, let's give dialogue a chance. If you don't do that, I am sorry, we would not solve the problem. That is the truth. You know, they are enemies of truth. They don't want to hear the truth. You can try it over and over again. You would not solve it. That's why even Mr. Frundi, the biggest opposition personality in the country, doesn't find his way with secessionists. They came after him. They came to his home. On the day when people were still moderate, he came out and tried to contain the population. And they told him, go back home. That's why even Mr. Bala, they came for him. That's why they've told Mr. Ayah, you are a moderate, just stay there and be quiet. The moderates have lost it. If it's about an inclusive dialogue, unless there is another definition to the word inclusive, it will involve every person, those who don't think like you and me. You would have to bring those people. The government has the best experts in the world.
Sisiku Ayub Tabe and his collaborators.
You would have to involve them.
And brought to the dialogue table.
You would have to involve them. They are controlling the situation. There is no way, unless you want to go the violent way, unless you want to keep on shooting yourself and bribing yourself out of the problem, which has not worked up to this point. And talking of Sissoko, how we'll talk about him. So there is no way you can do this without involving the radicals. You have the best professionals in the world. You just have to bring those people around the table and rubbish their stance. Just rubbish their stance and tell them, this thing you're talking about, secession or restoration, cannot work. Just rubbish their stance. You have to give the moderates the opportunity to convince the population that no, it is either a decentralization or the federation. You cannot do that without some radicals. You cannot do it.
And those who are now in detention, Sisiku Ayub and other members of the interim Ambazonian government, nothing is being said about them. They have been kept there. Nobody knows their whereabouts. Nobody knows what is happening to them.
I don't know if I belong to the school of thought that believes that those people may not be in Cameroon, or if they are in Cameroon, I don't know. Maybe they've died, or they're in Nigeria, or they're somewhere. Let me talk from the point of a jurist. We were told by the Minister of Communication that they are being extradited. I think that's the word he used, to Cameroon. I don't want to go into the legal understanding of extradition because it cannot work. There is no extradition treaty between Cameroon and Nigeria. It cannot work. They cannot be extradited. Extradition involves a procedure that takes a lot of time. You need to be tried in the country in which you are detained. You could appeal. It takes quite a lot of time. And by the Constitution, by the Criminal Procedure Code, you cannot be extradited for political offenses. For religious offense, you cannot. So I don't want to use the word extradition. Let's just say, as somebody is saying, they've been deported to Cameroon. If they are deported to Cameroon, and they are in the hands of the Justice Department, as the minister said, they benefit from the presumption of innocence. Unless you cut them flagrant delito, and even if you cut them flagrant delito, they have to be heard. So until the contrary is proven, since they talked of justice, they have to be tried. So for the moment, I will not call them secessionists or terrorists or whatever. I'll let the Justice Department do its job. 2, if they are in Cameroon, they have to be entitled to visits from your councils, from your families, from the civil society. Up to this point, none of such has been done. Since we are in a country of law, a state of law, going by all these legal principles, I would conclude that they are not in Cameroon. Maybe the Nigerian authorities picked them up and dumped them some, I don't know, or they may be dead.
All right, we're going to take interviews of the week.
Generally, voting was done in an atmosphere of order, calm, serenity, as prescribed by the head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya. No major incident or event was recorded, such as to impede on the sincerity and transparency of the current elections.
I had cast my vote and was about going when all of a sudden something happened. A camera was soon discovered in the voting booth. We don't know who placed the camera, but all of us have bad omens about that camera. It makes us feel horrible to know that the law providing this election
made it to be a secret ballot. And if we are voting under camera surveillance, it's no longer a secret ballot.
A hidden device was discovered, and surely it is a serious problem that will be investigated under the supervision of Elections Cameroon. The party also are there. They will certainly take necessary measures to help the truth be revealed to all of us.
We had security threats that they will be attacked, they will be disturbed from coming here. I think the administration took the responsibility to make sure that we bring our councillors here, and I think we did that. There's a communique to that effect. We made sure we looked for hotels to place them, and they slept, I think, comfortably.
On high-level instructions from the head of state, special security measures were taken and to guarantee the security of the electoral process all over the nation.
I've seen very tight security here in the police station. I've not gone to town. I just drove from my hotel straight to where I'm supposed to vote, and I think security is in place.
I think that the booth should be a little more discreet than what we have seen, because there are lots of people looking at the person who goes behind there, and it's not the best.
Municipal councillors turned out massively and voted peacefully. For the current elections, this ministry granted 3,723 observers. 3,309 were national observers, while 414 international observers. We are waiting for their report.
Started well. I see that there are lots of observers. It means many people are interested in what is going on.
I noticed 4 main changes. I have already been in other divisions since morning, and first of all, the general organization is better, and all the stakeholders are supporting the process, and then the municipal councillors, members of the electoral college, they are casting their vote in full respect of the pertinent dispositions of the electoral code.
I observe that the things have changed positively, because in 2023, I think when we arrived here, we were piling up and everywhere where we can vote. But now I think the things have changed. When you come, they escort you, you go and vote with not difficulty. I think the thing is better now.
We are to pass information. Now there is information beside you. You cannot go there. How then will we pass it? What can we do to pass it? It is a pity that especially here in Bush Division, we who are practicing journalism, we are just suffering. The media, I for one, we have had challenges wherein somebody organized an occasion, even take his time, call you or invite you, you go there, they don't have your time. We have even had situations where you access to get into a hall to do what you can do. It's a pity. You say this is close to this is a private or sacred meetings. This is not open to the press. What now is open to the press in Cameroon?
If the ongoing dialogue has any meaning, it should be well understood that it can only be done within the framework of state institutions. The head of state said it during the end of the year message, and people should understand that when things are done properly, in total respect of state institutions, then we can move ahead. But as for now, I can tell you that the region is peaceful.
We are not confused. Since it started, when 3 years, we don't know when it will stop. One, I mean them, for village side, they're looking for staying up presently. All has they down.
We are all confused in this crisis. Our mothers, our fathers, and other relatives are hiding in bushes. People have been killed, our houses destroyed, and every day people are dying here in Kumba. This is not a good sign for Cameroon. Even us bikers, we don't longer go to the farm because of insecurity. Cocoa farmers will not carry out their activities this year.
No man will go from the year. We cry for them, say, make we get peace.
Today our father, the minister, is here. We are begging him to end this crisis.
The head of state has also asked me to thank the forces of law and order and all the administrative authorities for their professionalism, because since the disturbances started, they have been able to manage the situation and everything is under control.
We got his communique suspending commercial motorbikers, and we came out today to show how dependent we are on our commercial motorbike activity. And for the minister to withdraw his decision, because we can't do without our commercial motorbike activity here in Kumba. It is our lone source of income. Reason why we came out to welcome him.
We decided to suspend the activities because most of all the bad things happening around the region, raping, stealing, killing, were done with the promotion of some of them.
And I was happy because the minister gave me and I was able to explain to him in detail the progress we're having. And I spoke of those who are homeless in Kwakwa and other places. All those places, houses that have been buried. And he has mentioned of that. He has made mention of those things and said that the state is going to do something to ameliorate the situation.
We see in him someone who goes across elitism. We see in him a true Cameroonian.
It's a complicated situation, but it is a radical situation, which means that the difficulties we have some roots which, if the solutions we seek to offer do not go back to the roots of the problem, we're just going to keep pruning it until it becomes a monster. The church, as the body of Christ and as a custodian of the gospel and of truth, has asked the population and the government to do what is proper, and especially asking the government to go to the roots of the problem. And after pushing that far, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church requested that Christians should offer prayers, ceaseless prayers, especially during this period of Lent. And in addition, we must be ready to forgive after the manner of Jesus.
AYAH AYAH Express 2018 continues in a large history of maritime relations with the United States Navy and the Cameroonian Navy. I've participated in AYAH AYAH Express since 2011, and I've been nothing but honored with the opportunity to share our knowledge, our experience, our maritime operation guidance with the Cameroonian Navy. We're happy and pleased for all of the activities that we had in 2018, and we also look forward to 2019 so we can build upon the success within Cameroon as well as within the region. That includes the Gulf of Guinea region, Sao Tome and Principe, as well as Gabon.
Palm Sunday is the day on which Christians commemorate the entry of Jesus into Jerusalem in triumph, acclaimed as king, not just any kind of king, a humble and meek king. And of course, Palm Sunday cannot be separated from the second part of the week, which it begins, called Holy Week, referring to the days of Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter, Saturday, because the reason Christ entered Jerusalem was to suffer and to die. And so it is the beginning of very important celebrations in the Catholic Church. In fact, the most important celebrations that build up to the Easter Vigil, which is the greatest of all the vigils, and Easter Sunday, which is the greatest of all the feasts in the Catholic Church.
To wash one another's feet is a sign of love. A priest or a bishop is a man of love. And he who loves washes the feet of those who are entrusted to him.
I took my resolutions to take care of the poor, to avoid myself from being distracted.
The resolution I took this lengthy period was I had to pray, do fasting.
We have to dedicate ourselves to the Christ. This is the Lent week, so we have to live a holy life, so give our life to Christ totally, because He died for us.
As from now, I'm going to humble myself. If I was feeling pride, I just look at Christ on the cross. I just think of how He died for us. He humbled Himself and died as a criminal. Now I'm going to humble myself, prepare by helping the poor.
As far as the news department is concerned, you know 2018 is a year of challenges. Politically, we will be covering some elections. At the level of sport, we will be hosting the African Cup of Nations in the upcoming year, and of course we have to be deployed on the field of the World Cup. So when you take into consideration these main challenges for the year, you see that the stakes are high and the expectations also, because we need to be first on the news and every bit across the national territory, and that is why it is necessary for us to have such an equipment which is going to enable us to respond energically to the challenges and go beyond the images to, give the facts to our televiewers.
You're welcome back. Now, your last word before we go concerning the refugees in particular who are suffering and dying in Nigeria.
I believe the President of the Republic is a great patriot, and I believe he at some point will watch this show. I would like to tell him and to tell his people that are watching that Cameroonian citizens are dying in Nigeria. If we consider those people as Cameroonians, if we consider them, if they are not the rats and the dogs we've called them, if they have the same rights as our French-speaking Cameroonians do have, if they are victims, as we've had victims over the years, like victims of Boko Haram, we had refugees up north, internally displaced people too. If they are such persons, if they are Cameroonians, then this government has to step up gear to cater for its citizens in another man's land. I would expect the government to send a delegation there to provide some relief saving materials to those people there if they are Cameroonians, and I believe they are. I would like the government to involve itself, to start up a vast project in rebuilding the houses that have been burnt. If there is a criminal, for example in Kwakwa, criminal responsibility is not collective, it's individual. Let's go get the criminal and not go burn down an entire village because of an individual. I don't even want to mention our great grandparents that are burned in houses. How do you go solving a crisis with this kind of mentality, with this kind of violence? I met Leon Juliet in Kwakwa. I'll call her Juliet, I don't want to call her name so that they don't go after her. She picked up the corpse of the grandmother that was burnt in the house and buried the corpse. And I tried to preach peace to her, and I understood that I was just wasting my time. How do you go consoling these people who have lost their loved ones in very tragic circumstances? That's why I'm saying resolving this crisis would require divine intervention. For example, the AYAH Foundation is working on a project to relocate the kids, most in particular, to Cameroon. I've already started talking with some authorities in Nigeria and their families so that we can start bringing back these kids. We'll start with 10 in the coming days, and we'll come up with a big project so that in our orphanage in Boya we can build some sort of, I don't know if I can call it an internal camp to keep those kids there. We can't go feeding them forever. We'll run short of money at a certain point. We'll grow tired. People are already getting tired. I would like the government to get itself involved in that kind of project. The local government of Benue State, for example, yesterday allocated 191 hectares of land for the refugees. Our government can do same, and even more. It's about Cameroonian citizens. Let the government go to, for example, Kwakwa, and the Didi village and the Kembong, all those areas where, forgive me for saying it, but it's truth, the military has been burning down houses, and rebuild those houses. Because those people want to come back. And a number of them telling me, my house has been burned down. It's truth. You just need to go down and verify for yourself. My house has been burnt down. I'm coming back. To which? To settle where? That's the problem. My mom has been killed. I can't go back to that house. The military will come after me. So the government should join us in relocating these people, bringing them back home. We cannot keep on feeding them forever. The government of Nigeria is doing a lot. They will get tired at a certain point. The HCR is still expecting funds, hoping that the funds will come, because their representative told me to the face that your government is not helping us. Until your government can make a statement that we have Cameroonian citizens here, we will not get the funding we want. If your government can be quiet, then what do you expect from us? So we want people to join us in this relocation, is the word relocation? In this rehabilitation campaign. Relocation campaign, yeah, good. We want to bring back the people progressively, but we can't do it alone. We're working with our means. We don't have a lot of money. We have no money. We hope the government joins us in doing this. We hope the government starts by making a statement that there are people there, who are Cameroonians of course. We hope the government sends people down the field there to visit them and give them some relief and console them. We hope the government brings their refugees back to Cameroon. It's a shameful thing to this nation that you have refugees dying in Nigeria, prostituting in Nigeria, fighting for life, for survival in Nigeria, and your government is quiet. It's a very, very bitter pill to swallow.
Right. Thanks very much, AYAH AYAH ABINE, for accepting to be our guest in this edition.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
We've come to the end of this edition of The Inside on Equinoxe Television. Thanks for staying with us. Take the appointment for next Sunday for another edition of the program.